Used 2002 Saturn. So he says it needs front brakes, calipers, rotors, pads, and hoses, and one new front wheel bearing. It's only got 120. Oh, it's in Sandy Springs. Come on, give me the money. He says the brakes are so bad you have to trailer it home, though. That would be the flip of the century. Oh my God. If I was being serious, I would buy this right now. It's currently 12:45 on Sunday. I am heading to Sandy Springs. I did get in touch with the guy who is selling that little Saturn L200, I think it's called. I don't know. I think that's a German car. I think it's an Opel. Gotcha. So how long have you had it?
It was my first car.
Was it really?
Yeah. And it was also my brother's first car.
Okay.
So I've had it for a while.
Gotcha.
And it was my great-grandmother, Salvo's. And then as she aged, it became like her church mobile.
Gotcha. So do you know what's wrong with the brakes exactly?
So it was evaluated by AAA.
Okay.
And so they told me kind of what I said. This one needs a new wheel bearing.
Yeah.
And it needs hoses, calipers, rotors.
Huh.
Front and back. They said the back ones were fine. Or
Yeah.
was replaced at least. And then these ones they said needed.
So, like, what happened? Did it like stop braking and then you took it to them, or?
It got spongy, and I got to my destination, and then I had it towed there. Like I said, I think it's been a reliable car for my family. It's kind of, I have a sentimental attachment to it a little bit, but
basically, me and the guy came to an agreement. We're saying 1,200. So I need a few things. I need money. I need brake fluid, and I need a second set of hands. I decided to enlist my dad. We need to get it down the hill, which is maybe the biggest challenge of the day. Well, I was gonna say get in, but then I thought, well, I mean, there's no reason to compound the death toll, you know? I'm not gonna lie, this hill is mildly intimidating. All right, so I just want to state for the reference, that was the driveway that this thing came down. I promise it's crazier looking in real life. All right, first drive in the sketchy Saturn. Ooh, that front suspension sounds kind of knocky. Ooh, something wrong there. Holy shit. I think I'm about to put my phone down. Yeah, but I'm literally gonna die, so I gotta shut this off. All right, so this is how far we made it. All the way to the Church of Scientology of all things. Which is not very far at all. We did not drive this car, I don't even think, more than a couple tenths of a mile, just kind of limped it. So the brake situation is very, very sketchy. And also there's a clunking sound, which as the guy told me that AAA told him this driver's side front wheel bearing needs to be replaced. That is the genesis of this whole thing, is when you grab onto this hub assembly, it's quite obvious that the wheel bearing has failed and it's knocking. So what that caused to happen was a pretty catastrophic and kind of interesting to look at failure. This is the old caliper right here, but we were actually gonna try and reuse the old brake pads just to limp it home, and we will not be doing that. That is the old inner brake pad, and it looks pretty bad just to look at it, but even more so when you discover that it is actually fused to the piston of that brake caliper. So that's how hot this got due to this wheel bearing failure. This is gonna be a very, very sketchy car to drive with the wheel bearing failure, even if we get the brakes done. So I don't anticipate driving it any more than just home without doing that wheel bearing. But we've got to get the brakes buttoned up at least to where we can get it home. What we're gonna try and do is, plan B is just ride with it vice grips like that, and that'll probably get us home. But even then we would need zip ties to secure that. Plan A is to go to advance and get a set of brake pads put on this new caliper, and get it all kind of semi-correct. It also needs a rotor, but we're not doing that today. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. First time I've ever seen where a brake got so hot that the pad actually fused to the piston. I mean, it's really nasty and sketchy in here. I mean, I think the guy who was driving it was lucky that he got home, honestly. But yeah, and really, you know, you've never lived until you've done a brake job in the parking lot of the Church of Scientology. That's what I've learned today.
I've got an argument for rolling without the caliper on, because you may mess that caliper up.
Well, you're definitely gonna. Yeah. So what I'm hoping is that just this drive alone we will not generate enough heat to damage anything.
Maybe not.
Because I mean, we're just going across town. It's a pretty big town. But, I mean, you do have a point.
They thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one sketchy wheel bearing. So, guessing they're not going to have that on the shelf in advance, but we got to load up. Look at that. Yeah, I'm saying, you haven't lived till you've bled brakes in the Church of Scientology parking lot. Yeah, we, I think, can limp this home. All right, so we're headed south, back into town. We have avoid highways on. Dad's behind me in the rearview mirror. We got this very, very sketchy front driver's wheel bearing, making some noise. So, here's where we're at. We're like halfway home, maybe even a little bit more than halfway home. So we stopped in a parking lot a few minutes ago, and I got out just to see if that wheel bearing was touched, hot to the touch. It's not. It's not. It's like this front wheel is like not even it's room temperature. So that's a positive. Like I said, the brakes are not our limiting factor for this drive. The brakes aren't perfect, but they're perfectly fine to get us home. They're really not scary at all. The only sketchy thing is that wheel bearing that scares me, because obviously if it created that much heat, to melt basically a brake caliper, and then the fact that it makes this roaring sound continuously it's a little bit scary. Man, 97.1 The River is really stepping it up. We got like a live version of Life in the Fast Lane. Man, you can tell the guy I got this thing from was a good kid. Look at that. Feast your eyes. Not a joint hole up in there. It is my great pleasure to inform you that I have obtained a Saturn. This is apparently it's a 2002 Saturn L200. So got this home last night. We did do the brakes in the parking lot. I think I have video of that. But basically what it took to get this thing home was front driver side caliper on this wheel right here. So along with that, it did also need the brake pads. The caliper was $54. The brake pads were also $54. So I paid $1,200 for this. I am now in it for $1,308. I will say, I do not think that I ripped off the guy who sold this to me. I think for me to pay him $1,200 for this was quite fair, actually. And yeah, part of me even thinks I should have tried to get it for less. Maybe tried to stick to my guns a little bit more and maybe try and get it for $1,000, because I think I could have walked away from $1,000 feeling perfectly ethical about that. And it's not that this is a bad car. In fact, there's really quite a lot of strengths to this one. I mean, it's low mileage, 126, one family owned since new. The interior is in pretty good shape. It'll clean up really nice. The engine's great, the trans is great, the AC is great, all the power stuff still works. It's got a decent radio that you can hook your phone up to. Really quite a few positives with this one, actually. I mean, all the it was not a mechanically inclined guy that I got this from, so it's a lot of low-hanging fruit that'll be easy or cheap, I think, for us to spruce up. But you got to be careful with these, because again, I paid $1,200 for this. I'm now into it for $1,308. And the problem with this from a resale standpoint is, for one thing, this. Nobody wakes up and gets on their computer and looks for nobody looks for a Saturn. Nobody gets on Craigslist and types in Saturn. So honestly, probably my best bet for selling this thing is, you can't tell right now because it's not rush hour, but that's Memorial Drive. That's like one of the main east-west roads in the city of Atlanta. A lot of traffic. People are always coming up to me and asking to buy whatever I've got sitting out in the driveway. So probably I'm just going to stick it out on Memorial with a for sale sign. And I think that'll be about as effective as Craigslist or anything, because there's people looking for this. I honest to God believe that this is going to be a really good, really strong 4-cylinder, cheap, gas-saving car, reliable for somebody. I don't know this car, but I honestly trust and believe that it is reliable and it's going to continue to be reliable. I honestly believe that. With that being said, caliper and pads on this side, we'll go through what it still needs before I can start attempting to sell it, and how much that's going to cost and where I think this is going to put me. Because again, $1,200, now we're at $1,308. How much meat on the bone is there left? I mean, I do not think that I can ask a price starting with a 3 for this. Don't think that's smart. Don't think that's doable. So, I mean, what am I going to get for this car? 2,500 bucks? It's a Saturn. It's a Saturn, you know, from like 2002. So I just do not know what I think the ceiling is very, very low for this particular model of car, just because it is not a Toyota Camry. It's not a Toyota Corolla. Again, I think it's a good car, but I don't think it is something that people seek out. And I think it's going to struggle from a resale standpoint just because of that. But anyways, so remaining expenditures on this one. So this front driver's side corner still needs attention. It needs a wheel bearing. So there's a few different ways that you can approach this. Number one, you can go on, and it also needs a rotor because the rotor got smoked when the whole bearing overheating process occurred. So there's a few different ways that you can play this. Basically, you can get the wheel bearing itself, and that's 20 bucks on Rock Auto, and that's really cheap. But that requires you to remove the knuckle assembly, and the knuckle is attached. The knuckle and the hub and the bearing are all intertwined, and then you take that whole assembly to a machine shop and you pay them, and they press out the old bearing and press in the new bearing. And just having to take that to a shop and pay them adds another step in the process, another expenditure. And the thing is that, from what I understand, they generally sell the bearing and the hub together because it's hard to replace the bearing without damaging the hub. Now the bearing alone is 20 bucks. If a machine shop could just press that in easily, that'd be beautiful. But if I have to buy the whole bearing and hub assembly, then that's 100 bucks. And that still requires machine shop work. So the next option, which is beautiful about working on a cheap old car you don't care about, here in Atlanta, there are 3 different pull-aparts. Pretty good junkyard chain. You can look up their inventory online. Between those 3 pull-aparts, there are 5 of these Saturn L-Series cars that I can choose from. And probably, honestly, the cheapest, easiest, fastest way to go about this, considering this is a car that I don't really care about it being any more than good enough for my purposes. Just go to pull apart, rip an entire knuckle assembly off of one of those cars, find whichever one is the nicest, lowest mile, something that feels decent to the touch. You can tell pretty easily if wheel bearing's bad. And just rip the entire knuckle assembly off, slap the whole junkyard knuckle assembly on this thing. You're probably in and out for 20 bucks, and you haven't paid a machine shop, you haven't waited around on a machine shop, you haven't done trips back and forth, you haven't paid Rock Auto, none of that. So that's kind of an option there. So we got to wait and see how much that bearing repair is going to cost, because there's a range of ways that could go. But let's say that's going to cost us somewhere in the range of, I think 150 bucks would be, given our options, given all the different ways that it could go. Let's say that's a median price. Okay, so 150 there. This side needs a brake rotor. That's 30 bucks. That's not too bad. This side also needs a hubcap. Again, 30 bucks on eBay. So not too bad. I'm a stickler for hubcaps. I'm not putting Pep Boys hubcaps on this car or any car. I'm not gonna do it. I don't believe in it. I don't like it. So we are getting a stock Saturn hubcap to match the other 3 hubcaps on this car. It's just something I'm not personally negotiable on for whatever reason. So where does that put us? 30 bucks, and we're estimating 150 bucks. So 60 plus 150, 210. We're at 1308 plus 210. Now we're at 1418 is where that puts us. Okay, so we're 1418 is our number. Well, what other cheaper free stuff can we do? Well, we can detail it, right? Car needs to be washed, right? Well, what's it cost to wash a car? I'm gonna say free. I'm not gonna count the cost of the soap. And then we'll wax it. The tint's kind of skanky. I honestly think the car would look nicer if I just ripped the tint off wholesale. I think you can do that with a blow dryer. I think that'd be cheap. Speaking of free or cheap stuff, this dent right here, You can tell you bought a car from somebody that's not really mechanically inclined when they just leave easy low-hanging fruit like that. I mean, you could hop right in that trunk and just bang that out in, you know, in a hurry. So we'll bang that dent out. That'll doll this thing up a little bit. So yeah, wash, wax, minor dent removal right there. This up here in the front, I am not going to worry too much about this. I don't see myself replacing a fender unless I happen to find one of these cars this exact same color in the junkyard, which I suppose I could check. But I'm not spending money to fix all this gap. If I can get in there and sort of monkey with it and rearrange it for cheap or free, then I might try and do that. But yeah, I do not plan to expend money to doll up this front corner right here. I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Speaking of juice not worth the squeeze, this car, the suspension is a little bit sacked out. You can tell when you drive it around. The suspension's just, I mean, it is. It's clapped out. It's worn. It's noisy. I mean, the problem with that is, where do you stop? Where do you start? I mean, if you want to do everything this car probably needs struts all around, and then probably bushings in a lot of places. And that, I think, could get prohibitively expensive when we are talking about a car that, again, I think has a very, very low ceiling. Ooh. That's an Ultimate, by the way. I see that car all the time. But yeah, this car has a very, very low ceiling for what it could possibly be worth. I think $2,500. So another thing, go to the junkyard. That badge right there. Hey. Yeah, I'm fixing it up a little bit. The thing it needs right now is it just needs a front wheel bearing. So I bought this from a kid yesterday. It was his great grandma's, and he got it from her. It's only got 126 on it. And anyways, basically what happened is the front wheel bearing went bad, and he kept driving it, and he basically smoked the front brakes. And so he just wanted to unload it. So I threw a new front brake caliper on it. Now the brakes are fine and pads and everything, but I still got to do the wheel bearing. So I got to do the wheel bearing. Do you drive up and down here a lot?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to do the wheel bearing, and then I'm going to put out for sale sign probably. I mean, the fact that it's a Saturn, so I think it's a really nice car for one. That's the thing, is like it'll be a good get around car for someone, because like I said, it's got 126 on it, not high mileage. Like when you get inside it, you can tell like it's a low mile car. It's clean. The AC is really strong. You can tell they didn't like do anything with the AC. It's just like, it's still good. But nobody's really looking for a Saturn is the only problem. So I think I could get, what's that?
That's just gonna be a get around.
Yeah, I like these. I had an Ultimate. I had no 5 Ultimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like this. It had the digital dashboard and everything. Yeah, I had one of these. Yeah, I actually like these a lot. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I could pretty easily get $2,500 for it, you know. But all right, appreciate it. All right, see ya. So yeah, you probably heard that. We already got our first buyer, the Marquee Ultimate guy. But anyways, yeah, this and then I got to throw a couple used tires on the back. So yeah, these are all the way down to the wear bars. The fronts are brand new, but these are down to the wear bars. So okay, so we said we were at 14, 18. What's 2 used tires in the 15-inch size category? Now we're talking 120 for those. So let's round up to 1420, add another 120. So now we're at 1540. So a little under $1,500. You know, you heard me talking to that guy. He was like, you know, throw me a number. And I was just, you know, I was like, $2,500. And he didn't seem to think that was crazy. So let's say this is a $2,500 car, or thereabouts. I'm thinking I can get into her for about 15, and after that, that is about where I need to or I need to call it a day, because I can't be spending, you know, 400 on struts all around, you know, yada, yada, yada. And then I spend a month doing bushings and $200 on that just to, you know, relive the German ride for something that somebody buying this car is not really going to care about perfection in the suspension department. It needs a valve cover gasket. I don't know if I should do that or not. I really don't know if I care. But yeah, that's where we're at. So going forward, it needs some kind of, like I said, front wheel bearing fix. It needs a rotor at the very least on this side. I will have to go ahead and do the pads on that side. I think the rotor on this side is salvageable. Not sure if it needs to be turned or not, but I mean, really, a responsible person would. So that means I'm probably not gonna. I don't know about the rear brakes. I gotta at least get them off. Another thing I'm gonna do that's like in the free or cheap category along with cleaning it up is I'm gonna take all these wheels off and these hubcaps. I'm gonna spray all the hubcaps with like some silver paint, and then possibly even spray the steel wheels under them with some black paint. And I think that'll dress it up a little bit. That's, again, the cheaper free kind of stuff. And yeah, so I think that's where we're at. I think our target is to be in this one for about 15, and I think our target is to get out for about 25. And I think roughly, big picture ballpark, that's where we're at. So, you know, basically I'm seeing, I think if we have a good day and the sun comes out and the stars align, we're maybe looking at $1,000 profit. But, you know, the way that these things typically work is $1,000 profit, usually with all the unforeseen things and the contingencies of life, typically means you're going to break even or maybe lose $1,000. So yeah, they're all like poker hands. It's like I always say. The problem with this one is I actually think this is a really strong hand. I just don't think there's any money on the table. So, you know, not the most exciting game to play, but hey, we're playing it.